Hello there everybody, Fast LEGO Studios here, and welcome in guys to the very first week of building the LEGO Simpsons Springfield. Let's jump right into it. And here we are guys, beginning a brand new LEGO project, a brand new MOC on the channel, starting from scratch once more, the LEGO Simpsons Springfield. But before I dive in any further into this LEGO creation here, I quickly want to point out to you guys that I've uploaded the LEGO Simpsons Krusty Burger up on LEGO Ideas. And what that means is if the project achieves 10,000 supporters, he will be taken into consideration of becoming an official LEGO set. And that would mean to expand Springfield by a whole new building here, the Krusty Burger, and adding to the already existing LEGO Simpsons house in Quickie Mart. And hopefully, right away on top of that, we would even get a third LEGO minifigure series, expanding the previous two LEGO minifigure series of Simpsons to a third one, adding in a bunch of new minifigures, because as of now, the entire LEGO Simpsons lineup is still lacking plenty and plenty of minifigures. So if you guys haven't already, highly recommend you guys click the link right away in the description of this video or the pinned comment. Either one would lead you guys to the very same webpage on LEGO Ideas, and from there on out, you guys can click support. We would be a step closer in potentially bringing back the short-lived LEGO Simpsons theme. And getting back to the LEGO Simpsons Springfield, if any of you guys are longtime viewers, you know I am a huge fan of The Simpsons. And now with that being said, I've really been looking forward to be building the LEGO Simpsons Springfield for quite a long time, and I think that time has now come. This entire LEGO creation will be huge, incorporating nearly all, if not all, of the Springfield landmarks, the most iconic ones, and the ones that are most remarkable to the show, filling up each and every single one of those buildings with as many details as possible. And all of those details would essentially make and add an entire new depth to the entire huge LEGO Simpsons layout. So this would be a very large project once more, and I think the best place to start it is from the Simpsons house. So without further ado guys, let's jump in and begin planning this LEGO MOC right now. And on to the planning phase of building Springfield here. You guys can see that I've got each and every LEGO Simpsons minifigure placed on the table. Surely this is not all of them, because we've got a couple of the minifigures that are basically the very same with slightly different torso or leg prints. So there are just different variants of these minifigures. These are just all of the ones that are different by their head molds. And then taking a closer look over onto the Simpsons house, surely this is not the one that's going to be going into my Springfield. This one is good for a starter house, but is nowhere near as accurate as the Simpsons house. As you guys can see, first off is it's missing the entire room just placed all the way over here. They kind of skipped out on this one, and that alone already bugs me quite a lot. But aside from that there, the garage itself is a slight bit too small here. It needs to be 4 studs larger, so I'm going to be increasing the size of that. And the entire width of the house itself is very thin. So with that being in mind, this one is going to be increased by about another 14-ish studs. And taking a look over onto the back of the Simpsons house, the first thing that I'll be really expanding here is this entire wall right here. Getting that expanded much more further out, allowing much more room in the build, and getting the wall right beside it expanded as well. The patio, or this little bit of pavement right here, is going to be expanded a lot more, just making it much more in proportion with how it looks like in the show. And then right away on this side, as you guys know, given the fact that we'll be having a room right here, this entire area of the build would need to be pushed back. and it's going to be being pushed back to the point where it lines up perfectly nice and flush with this wall here. And when that happens, we'll get so much room here, so much more room, that the beds will not need to be getting pushed up against the windows, and we'll be getting a lot more space within the entire interior of the Simpsons house. The only thing that I'm really happy about this build is really the width or the length going from here all the way to here. So that there is going to stay, and so are the windows, and really the main plain aesthetic of the entire build. The plain just design of it I really like, and I'm going to be keeping all of that. And the interior itself is going to be changing around to being a lot more accurate according to the dimensions that we're going to be expanding the entire Simpsons house. So plenty of updates still ahead of us, and plenty of modifications to be done. So without further ado, guys, let's begin taking the Simpsons house apart and making it look a lot nicer and a lot better. Alright guys, and here we are with the very first progress update. As you guys can see, I've taken apart a good majority of the entire previous LEGO Simpsons house and just placed it all onto this table here. Quite a mess at the moment here, but as we really get to building up the real thing right about here, the entire mess would slowly but surely go away. But anyhow, you guys can see I've done a little bit of organization here, getting some of the furniture in a separate pile. I've got some of the bricks just placed over here, some of the doors, windows, and such, so it's not all that messy, as there is a little bit of organization going on all the way throughout. And now on to the update. As you guys can see in front of us, I've got the very beginnings of the final Simpsons house that's going to be going into Springfield here, all just the very foundation of it all built up. I've been doing a little bit of planning on some graph paper here, just getting an idea of what I want to get done here, and just getting an idea of scale. Each one of these just little cubes here represents a single Lego brick, just kind of getting an idea of spacing and how everything is going to work. But taking a closer look at the progress that we have made here, you guys can see that I've kept the front of the entire build just about the same. You guys can see that I've not yet placed in the windows going right in these two areas. And well, while I do have either single window that's supposed to be just attached right into place, I've noticed a slight inaccuracy between this design of the official LEGO Simpsons house and the official Simpsons house. This streak right up here with the tan is supposed to be reddish brown. There is a slight bit of inaccuracy there, and I currently do not have the reddish brown version of these Lego hinges, so that is going to be left out of the build until I get those couple of parts. And then taking a look over onto this side of the house, you guys can see that I've got a little bit of a garden hose connector piece right here. Just a slight little bit of more detail that I've noticed the official LEGO Simpsons house skipping out on, so I attached that piece with just a single little connection. And then onto the entire just build that we have going on right here, you guys can see that we've got the good majority of the entire foundation of the Simpsons house all complete. All that is really left to do from this point forward is attach the entire garage. Still have to get a foundation there and get that in place, but the overall just structure of how it's all connected to the base and how it all works is all based upon LEGO's official design. But taking a closer look over into the interior of the Simpsons house at the moment here, you guys can see that I've done some very major modifications to the previous interior of the build. Well, first off, given the fact that I expanded the entire foundation of the model, surely the rooms had to have been changed up. And I've taken a look at the official Simpsons floor plan of how the entire house is laid out, the downstairs and upstairs. And starting off with the downstairs here, you guys can see that I've added in the living room. It's quite a tight fit at the moment here, but just taking a closer look at it, you guys can see I've tried to keep some of the very same details that LEGO included, with having like the piano being the official LEGO design, the chair being my own custom design here, and then right way over here the smaller version of the couch just being placed in here. And now surely this area right here with the 2x2 is supposed to accommodate for a curved Lego brick. I do not have that dark red Lego brick at the moment to kind of get these very same arches, as you guys can see on the TV room couch, but soon enough I'll get those in and just place those two on either side of the build. I've as well attached the chimney of the build right the way in place here. I'm still missing some of the frames that are supposed to be with like the family pictures going right here. Still need to get those in place. But those pieces really do not exist in terms of like the prints or stickers. So I think I'm going to graphic design all of the just fine little touches that will be going right the way in a place. And then taking a look over into the TV room, you guys can see that we've got basically the very same furniture as the official LEGO Simpsons house set had, as it's quite a perfect little set of what they had going on. But then as goes for the couch itself, I did have to modify it by just shrinking it by about like 4 studs, simply to just accommodate it into this very tight little room. I've even tried to get that very remarkable little bit of a slanted painting going right off on the wall. And then taking a look over into the kitchen here, there really isn't much that I've built up here, still plenty of progress to go, but what I'm expecting is just kind of get all of the counters and such, just cabinets, just placed around all the way over here, kind of like a U shape, just getting all of that in a place, and then having the rumpus room right the way over here being placed. Still a lot of building to go here, getting a hallway going right here, and then the garage itself, just as I mentioned earlier, all built up. And over here, you guys can see that I've got the dining room building up right here. Still plenty of building to go here, as I still have to get the dining room table itself, all of the seating, and all of the fine additions that will be going around that part of the build. And the stairs of the model here, I've kept the very same ones that the official LEGO Simpsons house had to offer, and I'm just using them or reusing them all over again for this design. As we kind of make our way into this very thin hallway here, there is supposed to be a cabinet all the way at the end, which I surely am going to build, but sadly minifigures are probably not going to be able to walk through this area. It's a little bit of a compromise towards what has to happen there because of this 3 long little spacing hallway here. If it were to be 4 studs long, it would have been able to work, but sadly, given the fact of how much room we already used up, I really didn't want to use up any more room, and it's just going to give a little bit of a suggestion towards that there is a cabinet being placed over here. But that right there is everything that we've gotten done in this current update. Still plenty of building to go, as we still have a lot more of the house to build, and still a lot more of the garage to build out itself with all of its foundations and such, but that is everything that I've gotten done for now. But with all of that being said, guys, let's move on to the next update and continue building the Simpsons house. Alright guys, and jumping right the way into the very next update of the build, you guys can see that I've got some very good news to start out this update. I've got the entire closet here being placed into the build. As you guys know, in the previous update, we had 3 studs right here, meaning a closet or just this door here was not able to fit. Well, actually, it turns out that when we attached the garage into place, or at least the wall that's going to be going into that garage, the entire build had an extra stud left over to where I could just take the stairs and the tiles over here, shift it over all by 1 stud, making the closet itself fit into the build. Really happy that I did so, and now it does not have to be a suggestion anymore as much as it actually can be a closet. But then taking a much closer look into that closet, you guys can see we've got a just a router with some USB ports. Surely that is not actually a router, but just to get the point down and the point across. And right below that, we do have studs placed beneath, but those studs soon enough will be tiled off the very same way as all of these pieces right here. I just do not have enough of these medium nougat tiles to fill all of that in, but once I get those in, I'll fill in all of those empty studs. And so I'll with all of this area here. But continuing to look at the closet here, you guys can see that I've added on a shelf with some boxes, and the shelf itself is able to accommodate for a couple of jackets to fit into the build. Now surely I do not have any jackets at hand to where this could fit, but any LEGO minifigure torso essentially could work right here. And then for concept reasons, you guys can see that 2 torsos can perfectly fit into the build. And then taking a closer look over onto the side of the LEGO Simpsons house, you guys can see that I've got the beginnings of the chimney all building up. This is the very same one that the official LEGO set had to offer, and I'm quite happy with the overall design. And now you guys may see that there's a little hinge right here, and may think that the entire build is able to hinge open. Well, in this case, that's really not what's going on here. I've basically used this LEGO hinge just to give it a little bit more rough texture to the entire build, given the fact this is supposed to be like a brick-built chimney. It's supposed to have a little bit of just roughness around the edges, and I find these LEGO hinges to do just the job that I want. But the reason behind why I'm not making this entire build hinge open here is simply because, given the layout overall of this entire Simpsons house, and given the fact that I'm placing it into a LEGO Simpsons Springfield, there really is no point in hinging it open, considering the fact that it's going to be just placed onto some LEGO plates and just studded in a place to where it's not going to be able to be moved around. And so all I'm going to do to get access into the interior of this model is just make the roof and the rooms themselves removable from the entire build. That would just make it a lot easier on how everything just kind of gets removed, and you get a lot better access into the interior, as I have originally tried to give it a little bit of the hinged look when you open it up. But then I just noticed after experimenting just a little bit here and there, it really isn't worth it, and considering the fact that it has a really just strange seam going right the way up the entire build, it really just doesn't add any value to this entire LEGO creation. But then taking a closer look into the TV room right beside the living room here, you guys can see that I've added on a little bit more tiling and a little bit more of the walls that are building up right here. Really happy with how all of that is turning out. You guys can see that I've placed this window right here on its side. The very same technique was used here as the one on the front like second floor here. That very same technique on the official LEGO Simpsons house. Just use that very same kind of building style, and it turned out a lot nicer. If you guys noticed by the reference images, it's supposed to be like horizontal, so that's exactly what I went for with this build. You guys can see that as of now, I am missing the patio that's supposed to be going right all in here. I currently do not have those 2x4 dark orange tiles, or at least enough of them at least, to where I can just fill all of this area in with those particular LEGO pieces. And then taking a much closer look into the kitchen of the build, you guys can see that I've attached the kitchen table right the way into place. Now, this is the bare minimum of everything that's going to be going in here. Just got that breakfast table and then just some of this flooring just being placed about. But still plenty of things to do. As we know, we've got like all of these counters here, the fridge, stove, and all of that to still attach into the build. And then right the way off on the side here, if you guys notice in all of the Simpson episodes that do showcase this wall here, or at least like show a glimpse of it, there's like this little bit of an engravement to where there's a shelf being placed into the wall. And so I've just tried to capture that very same aesthetic here with like that little bit of an arch brick here, and then just having some books just piled one on top of another, getting those like very subtle details that do pop up in the end when we kind of get like the cabinets here, this little table off in the corner, and all of the other details that are going to be placing right the way across this build. All of the very fine touches that we're going to add into this build is really going to make up the very big picture of the end result of what we'll be having done to this entire LEGO build. But that right there, guys, is all of the progress that we have gotten done for this update. Still plenty of progress to go, so just getting the rest and just the entire kitchen essentially being placed in a place. the entire rumpus room over here being built up, at least the wall that divides the kitchen from the room itself, and then having the dining table being placed right here, the cabinets, the painting right the way on the wall, and the entire garage in general. So plenty and plenty of buildings still left to go, but I think at this point in time, that will all be done by next week's episode. So with all of that being said, guys, let's wrap up the video and move out of week number 1 of Building Springfield. And there we are, guys, at the end of week number 1 to be building up the LEGO Simpsons Springfield. We've made some absolutely amazing progress in this week's episode. Given the fact that it's week number 1, I feel like I've pulled off more progress than possible for just a week's worth of work. All that we were supposed to really get done here is just planning the entire build out and just getting an understanding, but we've exceeded that. We've gotten the entire layout of the build built up and are just getting all of the rooms within the LEGO Simpsons house itself built up. We've taken apart the entire previous Simpsons house and are starting all from scratch, just using all of those parts to make a much more improved, better, and accurate interpretation, as goes for the interior of the LEGO Simpsons house right now. You guys can see that we've definitely incorporated a lot of the very fine details that the show has to offer. And now surely it is impossible to fit in each and every single small little detail from the show, just given the dimensions of the Simpsons house itself, all built up in LEGO. There are some compromises like that I did have to make, but I don't think it really takes away from the big picture of what we have going on right here. But then, as goes for next week's episode, all I'm really planning to do then is just build up the model even more. Just get more of the interior complete, more of those very small details built up, the walls around the Simpsons house done, get more windows in place, the garage itself, we have to get that all built up, a lot of that foundation building there. Kinda wish I touched up on that in this week's episode, but once again, what we were supposed to do in this week's episode was beyond my expectations. But just taking a step back and looking at the entire LEGO Simpsons Springfield as a whole of what we'll be doing here, I'm really not planning to just go in order like, you have the Simpsons house, Ned Flanders' house, the Brown house right next to it. I'm going to be kind of jumping around Springfield here and there and building all of the very remarkable locations at some time in the near future. Soon enough piecing them together to being a much more complete layout of Springfield. So that is all for the future plans, getting as much detail as possible placed into the entire build, each and every single building, just filling them up. But given the space that each single build will have, I'll try to cramp in as much details as possible, giving the build a whole new dimension. And once again, guys, if you have not already supported the LEGO Simpsons Krusty Burger, highly recommend you guys do, as once again, we may potentially get not only the Krusty Burger itself as an official LEGO set, expanding upon the already existing LEGO Simpsons theme, but we would as well get potentially a third LEGO minifigure series. That would be beyond imaginable and quite a thing there. Just having another LEGO minifigure series of the LEGO Simpsons minifigures, expanding the entire Simpsons Springfield much further, and populating just my Springfield overall with all of those minifigures. But that is all for the future here, so stay tuned to the channel to see what happens. But with all of that being in mind, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you guys are new, and comment down below in the comment section of what are your guys' thoughts on the very first week of building the LEGO Simpsons Springfield. Quite a lot more building left to go in the future updates, and quite a lot more designing and figuring out a lot more things. But with all of that being said, keep on building, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye.